Neighbors read their contract. This is a story from a year ago involving my neighbors. Thought it was worth a share. My neighbors were selling their house and had been screwed left and right by the buyers. For background, neighbor learned he was being relocated to another city. Partner and him started working out the details. And their house went on the market and was quickly closed with a deal pending. If you've never bought a house before, closing can take between 45 and 60 days with things like inspections, necessary repairs, etc. So they started down that process. Their buyers came off sweet but quickly turned sour. The people they hired to inspect my neighbor's house were family members. And they came away with a huge sheet of things to be repaired or to knock down the price. Many of those repairs they demanded be fixed at my neighbor's expense by a different contractor, despite the fact that my neighbor is a contractor himself. Then, they started sending people to house unannounced, totally illegal, and showing up to the property on their own, trespassing. The nail in the coffin was that my neighbors had been strung along for a full 10 days longer than they should have been because the buyers kept threatening to back out of the sale, despite having already signed paperwork without their knowledge. All very muddy. As part of the contract, the buyers said that needed to take all personal property and all debris, claiming a financial penalty for cleanup if there was anything on the property that the buyers thought counted. So my neighbors had spent a lot of time cleaning out yard debris, multiple dump runs, etc. But as the purchase was almost finalized and all this shitty stuff was happening, they had an idea. While one as a contractor, the other works in legal and has for 10 years. She took to the contract and local home purchase regulations for the definition of personal property. Turns out that besides the obvious, light bulbs also count. They went through and removed every light bulb they could find, except ones that were installed as part of fixtures. The sellers had to purchase nearly $200 worth of light bulbs as part of their move-in, which they did not discover until they showed up with moving trucks. Just an aside, what counts as personal property varies from state to state. If this story inspires anyone. Fun fact. In the state of NC, the stove counts as part of the real estate but the refrigerator is considered personal property. Sometimes the little "fuck you" is the most satisfying. Many of those repairs they demanded be fixed at my neighbor's expense by a different contractor, despite the fact that my neighbor is a contractor himself. Quote, pure BS. From they buyers. Not op. Buyers can point out repairs to be fixed but they can't select the contractor as they are not paying. They can then inspect the repairs. Also, the seller has the right to say no to any of the repairs. Then it is in the buyer's ballpark to decide if they want to go through with the sale. I want to do this in the rental I'm being forced to leave. The in-wall AC units too, since we purchased them and never invoiced the landlord for it. So are these buyers your new neighbors now, and if so, how have your interactions, if any, with them been so far? As a home inspector and as someone who has bought and sold a home, it is important to know when to walk away from a deal when the other party is being difficult. We were selling our home and got 3 offers in the first 3 days. We ended up choosing one of the offers and started the process. Things were going fine for a week. Then the buyers had an inspection done. Perfectly fine. I am an inspector too, and found some pretty typical small issues, plus some roof issues and some siding damage. This was a townhouse, so the WA is responsible for the roof and siding. A new roof was getting put on in the next year as planned and the siding was scheduled in a month. They then ghosted not only us, but their own agent as well. They also failed to provide the earnest money when it was due, before the inspection even took place. When their time ran out on the deal, we relisted our house. The very next day after relisting, they contacted us with the demand that we fix everything, including replacing the roof ASAP, that their inspector found, plus make some aesthetic improvements like replacing the perfectly good tile countertop and raising the microwave higher above the range. It was 16 inches above already, which is industry standard. No. We declined their offer and refused to negotiate with them anymore because of the ghosting and lack of earnest money. We could have sued them for the earnest money, but we decided to just let it go and move on. We ended up selling the house for the same amount. All the buyer asked for was to have the garage door serviced, which we did. We also got a more favorable move-out date of 6 weeks after the title transfer. A little extra info in case anybody is interested. From what I heard from my agent afterwards is the mother of one of the buyers started flapping her gums about non-issues and aesthetic choices, and the buyers started getting second thoughts. It was already at the top of their price range, and those new doubts had them worried. Rather than talk to their agent, they went radio silent for 15 days. I see this happen all the time. Not the ghosting. That was new. At my own inspections, where a family member thinks they know the inspector's job better than the inspector and try to convince a family that their outdated or wrong info is true. I think they do this in a misguided attempt to help their family member negotiate for a lower price or more favorable terms. But they haven't been there for the whole process and actually end up derailing the negotiation to the detriment of the buyer. At my own inspections, I have gotten really good at calling the Uncle Bobs and Aunt Sues. That's what I call them. Out while being respectful and not embarrassing them, so they can save face while the buyer gets the correct information. As first-time buyers who were screwed over by their agent, sellers, and contractor provided by agent, this makes me feel good. Love our house, but there were things missed or things that needed to be fixed or price reduced before buying. Live and learned, but fuck those sellers. Karma never forgets. When they submitted the list of things to be repaired, the owners could have just said no on anything or all of it. Then the buyers can pull out of the sale if it is still under contingency. I had a buyer give me a list of 10 items for a condo. I said no to 8, pointing out their inspector had caused the damage to one of the items, and agreed to 2. I told my agent they could pull out of the sale, but I was not negotiating. They still bought. My previous owner left over $30,000 worth of stuff here, and my landlord wanted me to go after her for $1,500 for a new pool pump. She was considering leaving $50,000 worth of stuff. We're still friends. There's no schadenfreude in this post. Those buyers are pieces of shit and got barely a slap on the wrist for doing so. Pipe. Where was their re-agent in all this? Someone sleeping at the wheel. ZZZZ. No offense to sellers, but as my dad told me one day long ago, why would you sign something that you didn't read in? Fully understand? Quote. When my parents moved into their current house, the previous owners had taken the gas fireplace, ceiling roses and curtain rails. They weren't on the list of included property, so they took them. Mad. Parents had this after a big move to the other end of the UK. Their buyer tried to sue after they left sheds, spare wood, and even plants and trees. Their solicitor copied them into his reply. All of the items listed were included in the sale of the property, i.e., See all that shit you don't want? That's yours now. You bought it. Amazing really how people are with house buying. When living at home, I witnessed buyers wanting work done on the house before they moved in. And paid for. Whilst the price knocking down because they may have to paint a wall. Should have stuck a couple frozen shrimp in the curtain rods around the house. I went the other way with a landlord that threw me out to give the house to his kid. And superglued about 20 light bulbs into their sockets. They still worked fine. So I got my deposit back. But I like to think that months from then as bulbs start to blow. He had the realization that he's going to have to replace and rewire all those fixtures. The first house my parents bought was a bank foreclosure. The previous owners removed all the light fixtures and all the landscaping. Except for 3 oak trees that were too big to move. In Germany it's a normal thing while renting an apartment, no bulb sockets. No bulbs. No light fixtures as well. Mine had bare wires with a tape on it. Almost as just billed by developer. I bought $20 light bulbs. When I sold my place, I stripped everything that wasn't a fixture. Including the bulbs. Never give stuff away for free. Sounds like the sellers had a really bad real estate agent.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Haircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.